Welcome fellow Blade members, I hope you are enjoying your time with Xenoblade X Definitive Edition as much as I do. It's been a week since the game came out, and most people who take their time with the game are probably just around chapter 5/6 when the game finally opens up and gives you the most broken mechanic in a video game ever, Overdrive. There are tons of videos that go in depth about the extent of this mechanic already. If you truly want to know the ins and outs of everything that Overdrive encompasses, I highly recommend watching the pros talk about it. But I have had a lot of people tell me that it was still a bit too complicated for them. Plus, Overdrive is completely different in the late game than it is at the beginning of the game when you don't have so many tools available. So my goal in this video is to make a very beginner friendly guide with a step-by-step explanation of what you need to do to get the most out of the Overdrive at the beginning of the game. So, what is Overdrive exactly? If you have played the Xenoblade game before, it's kind of like a replacement for the chain attack. This time, that team plays less of a role and it's just a mechanic to multiply your damage output, art recharges and lower enemy resistances. You can activate it after chapter 5 by having 3000 TP/tension points and by pressing the Overdrive button in the middle. So, how do you gain TP? The first way is through auto attacks. Every weapon in this game has a stat called TP gain rating and it determines how much TP you gain by auto attacking. Pay attention to the number of hits that connect as well. But there are also a few arts that give you TP by doing their special conditions. Sliding Slinger, for example, boosts TP when hitting the enemy from the side, and Primer just gives you a certain amount of TP as well. These arts are specifically available to dual guns, so if you have a different class, just look at the art description to see what you can do with it. Soul Voices also help you gain TP, but that is a whole different topic that is way too big for this video. Basically, if you finally have 3000 TP, you can get an Overdrive going. Now your cooldowns load way faster, you gain an extra tertiary cooldown that makes your arts even stronger, and most people just spam their arts and then the Overdrive just ends. It's very different for each class to make the most out of Overdrive at the beginning of the game. There are classes such as Duelist, which uses the longsword and the assault rifle, and Full Metal Jaguar, which uses the dual swords and dual guns, that have a way easier time to get an infinite Overdrive going. It all depends on what arts your current class has. Some classes like the Galactic Knight that I'm working on will be much more useful in the late game, but it's very difficult to get an Overdrive going in the early game. If you don't want to work on these classes right now, or you are working on a different class, you can always play as other characters as well. I will be using Elma herself in this demonstration because it's super easy to get a good Overdrive going with her, and her class also offers super useful skills such as Hellbound, which extends the Overdrive duration, and Phantom Counter, which increases the Overdrive counter. I will explain what that means next. First, let's explain what you can do during an Overdrive even if you don't extend your time past the first couple of seconds. Just activating Overdrive is going to give you an initial area of effect that can kill lower level enemies instantly, and the power depends on your potential stat. After that, your main objective is to get this counter as high as possible and gain as much TP as you can during it to extend your Overdrive. To raise the counter, it's as easy as to hit the enemy. Every single hit that connects counts towards the counter. So range weapons count every bullet that connects, and that helps you get the counter up by a lot. Raising the counter means you are raising your damage, fastening your cooldowns and lowering resistances to enemies. It's actually super simple. There's just one rule you should always consider. The counter guidance is telling you that you can combo any color into green, purple, blue and then back into any color. It's also okay to just use red arts into more red arts and yellow arts into more yellow, but there is one forbidden combo that you should never do. Never use a red art after a yellow art and vice versa. Red arts are your melee arts and yellow your range arts, so it's very tempting to do so, but it breaks the counter combo and is overall the worst thing you can do. So always activate a green or a purple art in between your melee and ranged attacks during overdrive. Blue is also okay, but blue is always for auras and they all need 1000 TP, and in the first few seconds you really don't want to be wasting your TP. Before we go into the next step, there are more important things to know about the first few seconds. Green into any other color doubles your overdrive counter. So, for example, doing sliding slinger hits the enemy 6 times and raises the counter by that amount. But doing any green art before using sliding slinger now raises the counter by 12. And green arts are even more useful than you think. In overdrive they actually extend your timer by 0.05% of your current time. In short, it means you can extend your time by spamming green arts, and even if it's not by a lot, it will help you in the long run, especially because a lot of green arts can be used multiple times back to back. So if you consider all of this and you see your time runs out and you are nowhere near 3000 TP again, you can now activate your hardest hitting attack, which probably uses 1000 TP anyways, and deal the most amount of damage you can manage in that time period. This is the simplest way to use overdrive at the beginning, and it's very helpful for dealing a lot of damage. But what if you could go even further? If you manage to reach 3000 TP again during the first few seconds, you can press the button in the middle again and extend your overdrive for the full effects of this mechanic. This is very hard to do for some early game classes, but it's easy to do with Elmer's class, for example. First of all, Blood Sacrifice halves your current HP and gives you 1000 TP in return. This is the easiest way to gain TP, but it's also very risky to do. The fun part is to actually use it before the battle even starts to gain free 1000 TP that lets you start an overdrive earlier. Your health will regenerate if the battle didn't start yet, but your art will be on cooldown still. During the battle there is actually a way better solution to gain TP than to use Blood Sacrifice, but you can always use it as a last minute save. So after you start an overdrive, your top priority in the first 25 seconds is to get the count up and gain 3000 TP back. I already explained how to get the count up, which is important for cooldowns to get fast very quick. Then by using purple arts back to back such as Side Slash, you gain a hefty amount of TP. That's because purple arts give you 10 TP times the counter value during overdrive. Another reason to get the counter as high as possible. Basically, after you start an overdrive, you want to use green arts into an attack that hits multiple times, in that case sliding slinger for me, to get the double counter bonus. Use green arts a lot by themselves because they add to the timer, and use purple arts as much as you can to gain TP, especially after the counter is high. You don't want to use any TP art that wastes 1000 TP yet or focus on dealing the most damage. You need to lock in and gain 3000 TP before the time runs out and ignore everything else that goes on around you. The blur on the screen is an indicator in my opinion that tells you to ignore your surroundings and just focus on the overdrive right now, because the blur is insane, not gonna lie. After you finally got 3000 TP back before the time runs out, reactivate the overdrive and now it's a completely different game. You still want to get the counter up for the best benefits, but gaining TP is now so much easier with purple arts, and you can finally start using TP arts as well, such as auras or high hitting attacks. You can take it now a lot easier, but you can still run out of time if you don't pay attention. Now you can also pay attention to the color combo guidance that explains what color combos even do. We already talked about double overdrive count, but purple into any color gives you appendage damage up, blue into green arts recovers HP, blue into purple extends debuffs, and using 3 red melee arts back to back will get you XP up at the end of the overdrive, as well as yellow combos giving you class experience up. As said previously, you can pay attention to these if you really want to get the most out of overdrive, but as long as you don't do any red into yellow or yellow into red, you are doing nothing wrong. You can focus on getting TP to activate an offensive aura or something and do the hardest hitting attack you can think of. early game enemies will melt with that force. One more tip of advice. Don't forget to level up your arts. Especially green and purple arts are super important to have quick cooldowns so that you can spam them indefinitely during Overdrive. Also, green arts that buff not only you but the rest of the team extend the timer even more than normal because it uses the 0.05 multiplier for each party member. I recommend betting on green and purple arts that state in the art description that they can be used immediately after the second and third cooldown instead of buffing their effects. Here's another example with Arena. Smooth Recovery has immediate reuse and works on all nearby allies, so you can see I'm getting up to 15 seconds back on the timer. And Furious Blast has 15 hits, which are 33 counterpoints if you do the green to yellow combo. And one last note, there is a benefit if the entire party uses Overdrive, but for that everyone has to have 3000 TP, which you can command them to save TP with the command shortcut of holding down the L button plus Y and then command them to use Overdrive with L plus X. But you will notice the further you get in the game that team partners don't really matter so much in this game. I hope this was easy enough to understand. I recommend using Elma to get the gist of Overdrive early, but don't be discouraged if you can't get an extension just yet. It will be a lot easier later in the game, and there are tons of skills and accessories that boost your maximum TP so that it's easier to hold it or straight up boost TP gain. With my current class setup, I can't get infinite overdrive myself, so it's just normal. Use the first 25 seconds to get a lot of damage at first if you have to, and if you feel ready to go for an extension, the world will truly open up to you. If you like Xenoblade, you know you can find more stuff here. Subscribe and comment if there's any more questions or additions to my explanation. I'm also only just around chapter 6, but you know I will be doing videos when I finish the game, so stay tuned for that. Also, just like the video, do it for Nier.